Welcome to episode 251 of Littleroot Lessons. Yes, it's the Celebi episode, which is fitting because I flipped so many tails with my Celebi EX this week. This week, even though last week we were actually able to get the usual cast, and then Jay is visiting family in Long Island, and something came up for Carter today. So we went from 3 for 3 to 1 for 3, but we have two amazing guests with us, two returning guests, June Lintner and Chris Larkin. How are you two?
I'm doing well. I'm in a pretty bad place, and by that I mean I'm just in Florida.
Yeah,
but
awful.
Other than that, it's been good. Holiday season, can't beat it.
Had a few big finishes for you in Regulation H. You've gotten significantly more championship points since the last time you've been on the pod.
That is true. I was thinking about it today. I've already got more points this season than I did all of last year.
Yeah,
and I'm still fighting for my life to try to stay in that top 25. Sucks.
And Chris, what's new with you?
It's good. I played VGC for a single day, and then the new Pokemon Pocket expansion came out, and then I got very distracted. But I am hoping to play more. There's already one Philly local scheduled for January for the Reg G. Just was not a Reg H guy. Too many things to account for in building. My brain is so small. I need to be able to prep for like 4 teams, and like that's it. So I'm probably the one person excited to go back to the restricteds once I can stop playing Pokemon Pocket. I mean, I would have preferred double restricted, to be clear. I want to make Miraidon Satian. That's what my brain needs. But we're not there yet. So
yeah, I also wish we just went to GS Cup. I'm excited for Reg G in the sense of I really, really miss Ogerpon. And I also wasn't a big, Reg H, I just couldn't find any results with it. I also wasn't playing much, so that's more on me, I think, than the regulation. But I am excited for Reg G. I'm excited for USPA. Even though I won't be playing, I will be hardcore managing and making sure that everyone else does well with their Reg G teams. I will be the Nick Sirianni of this league. Hopefully not derogatory, but probably also a
non-derogatory division. Who's your equivalent of? Don't actually answer this, but who's your equivalent of Jalen Hurts getting concussed, and then you have to put in Kenny Pickett? It's like, it's a little bit concerning.
Easy. I can tell you my Jalen Hurts getting concussed. That is boy wonder Zach Weed saying, Angelo, I have to go on a college visit this week. I can't play.
That's Zach Weed taking the ACT.
Yeah, it's like I have the SATs this week. I'm like, oh shit. So that's what that is. I'm not going to. I don't know the rest of my roster. I have technically 5. Cable, my co-captain, and the head captain of the team. He does want a player spot as well, so I'm giving him that. I'm completely fine letting other people play. When I'm managing, I like to just focus on management. I can't do both, just like how Nick Sirianni can't play call and be a head coach. Know your limitations, folks. But yeah, we only have 4 or 5 players at this point, pretty much set in stone. And if you're listening to this, you already know who you are, because I've pretty much told about 3 of you. I don't think there's one player I don't talk to, but Daniel Reyes. He's top 8 at LAIC. I can just put his name in ink for signing. He doesn't have to do it.
If you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, he doesn't have to try out for this. But yeah. But with all the Reg G talk, we actually had our first real big Regulation G tournament this weekend, which we are going to be going over, if I remember what button to press. There we go. So USPA went and had a collaboration with Spear Pillar to do a Winter Regulation G tour with a $300 grand prize. Now, this was a bigger tournament. We had 353 teams. Players partake. I know that a lot of other USPA teams use this as a major part of their tryout. I know that New England and Massachusetts did not. We're having our own little tryouts. But this was like a big thing for the American players that you see who are playing. They were probably playing not only for the $300, but for their spot in their USPA team. And then, of course, we see it won by an Italian, well, by an Australian and an Italian. So great job, America.
You love to see it.
Yeah. Before we go into the teams, let's actually talk about the Pokemon because a lot of these Pokemon we haven't seen because they were banned, and then there's also a couple of them that again, Pokemon that usually shoot up in higher power level formats, and the main one I want to talk about with that is Frigoraph, back fourth in usage.
I love that giraffe. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I care about in Reg G. This is the most honk shoe, disgusting, boring, like despicable, like top 12 usage that I've seen. Like, I mean, since we had Reg G the first time around, but the fact that we get Farigiraf back at like 20+% usage, I'm all here for that.
I
That's
love
awesome.
this Pokemon so much. This is a Pokemon near and dear to a lot of our hearts. I know, June. This was Farigiraf was a main piece on the first team that you, me, and Nishant all built together and all got points with. It was like one of the 2023 global challenges. So this is a near and dear to our heart Pokemon. And it is you're right. This Pokemon being good is the best part of Regulation G for me.
It's just like an auto inclusion on so many teams. Like every time I sit down to build a Miraidon team, I'm just like, oh, gotta have Farigiraf. There's no way you can't have Farigiraf. Like it's really cool and it doesn't mess with your terrain and probably don't want to play Serena. So it's like, what else are you gonna do? And I like that we have seen a lot of different versions of it, right? I always think of like the Geo Costa. It was Geo Costa, right? Who did like the Life Orb one. It's like, why is the support mon using Life Orb? It's like, oh, because I killed a bunch of stuff when he got to use Life Orb. That's cool. So I think Farigiraf's interesting because it's an auto include, but it has so many different items and move slots that you can use that you can sort of customize it in that way.
And we do see some things that are relatively standard. Electric Seed was on almost 50% of the Farigirafs. We see that a lot with Miraidon, which is the number 2 Pokemon that it was paired with. Over half of the Farigirafs in the tournament were paired with Miraidon. But then you do have Safety Goggles, Throat Spray, Mental Herb, Citrus Berry, Grassy Seed, and then, of course, Trick Room is on every single Farigiraf. Helping Hand and Foul Play are on more often than not, and then Psychic Noise is more common than the other moves. But you still have Hyper Voice, Protect, Psychic, Twin Beam, which is a really cool move. Twin Beam is really awesome as a way to get rid of Sash Water Foos, and also just a good way to like break other Sashes, chunk Pokemon. It's just another neat tool that it has. Psychic Noise as well. That move coming back. It really is an amazing way to stop Pokemon such as Iron Hands from being able to just click Drain Punch. One of the cool interactions is if your Farigiraf can move before a Pokemon using Drain Punch, it'll actually it'll just completely stop the move. No damage, no healing. It pretty much makes that Pokemon waste a turn, which is really neat.
Yeah, I'd love and that's the other thing about Farigiraf is the variety that you see in the move sets. It's not an Urshifu where you're going to run the same 3 moves, and then the question is just U-turn if you're Scarf or Aqua Jet if you're not, or Miraidon that's going to run the same 4 moves. But Farigiraf, my favorite, I love the Life Orb set. Just like Chris was talking about, like it's so strong. You can run Terra Dark, Life Orb, Foul Play, and just OHKO both of the horses. You can go Life Orb with Hyper Voice and just get really good damage on the board. Psychic Noise, of course. If you're running either a throat spray set or just bulky. Like we see, I think Psychic Voice is like, for me, should be on all of the Farigirafs that are on Miraidon teams because those opposing Iron Hands and Calyrexes that get pollen puffed up by their Munguses are such a problem for those teams. It's Free is so much fun. I'm so excited to use that on literally every single team I build in Reg G.
Yeah, I have so many shiny Fergraph. So if you do need one or a shiny, I think I might almost be out. But if you need one, let me know. I have like a few different like marked ones. I don't know. It's just a Pokemon I just love using, and it was a shame that it really wasn't that good in Regulation H, and it's probably why I didn't enjoy Regulation H that much, because it was the first reg since like Reg E where I'm like, I can't build with Farig. This sucks. But yeah,
The
moving on to
Free
some
Index.
yeah, moving on to some of the other Pokemon. Again, like some of these, like moving down, a lot of these Pokemon are Pokemon that we expect to see. Whimsicott is another Pokemon that was legal in Regulation H that we didn't see a lot of usage out of. One of the trends, especially later in the format, was the use of these bulky, non-prankster Tailwind users. While Whimsicott really wasn't seeing as much play, to see it in seventh in usage here is pretty big. Going with the single screen set in most cases, that Tailwind Moonblast Encore light screen with Covert Cloak. Again, this is another Pokemon that is paired with Fergraph a lot because you like having those dual modes of speed control on the Miraidon team.
Yeah, and Whimsicott is the honorable prankster tailwind setter. Tornadus, not honorable. It's just not. Whimsicott, he's just a silly little guy. He claps at you, and you're like, "Oh, I'll do the same thing again." Yeah. So Whimsicott honorable, Tornadus not. Also Murkrow not. Not that it's really relevant, but Murkrow is not honorable.
No.
Haze next to Golden Go was unfair. So not an honorable prankster tailwind setter.
Yeah. Some other Pokemon. I think one of the other things to note is just the order that we're seeing the restricteds in. Calyrex Shadow is number one restricted with 67 in this tournament, followed by
No, Cali Ice
I'm
is
sorry,
above it.
Cali Ice. I can count. I can't read. Cali Ice at 76, Cali Shadow at 67, Miraidon at 60, and then you go with Zamazenta at 42, Terapagos at 30, Kyogre at 23, and then you have to go all the way down to Zacian at 13 and Koraidon at 12 to round out like the top 8. One thing to note, Koraidon, even though it was the 8th. Looks like I think only one day two'd. Its highest placement was only 22nd, so not really that great of a play.
Also, all the. Oh, sorry, you go, June.
Oh, I was gonna. Is this the usage for the entire tour, or is this
This
just?
is the usage for the entire tour. I can't remember what top cut was. Like
Okay,
if we
yeah.
just do, like if we just do top 64.
Oh yeah, if you do top 64, because that was the other thing that I saw was, of course, the best Mons have higher representation on the better teams. Like that's nothing new. But Urshifu jumping from like 61% overall to like 80% in day 2, that stinks.
And it also has a crazy win rate, 51.67%. Its advance rate was also really good, 23.39. It's so I think one of the big topics of Regulation H was that there was another unfair fighting type that was really fast in Sneasler. And
fraudulent in this regulation.
It is.
I could not believe people were like, "Oh, Sneasler's going to come back once we see it." It's like, dog, we played a whole format, and the only thing we got was Electric Seed Acid Spray, which is not a real set if people see it.
Yeah, I know.
I'll say. Sorry. I was going to say, yes, completely agree. Sneasler, fraud, bad mom, and Reg G, unless your name is Liam McDonald. In which case, I see that Sneasler and I'm terrified.
No, so see, Sneasler and Liam and Reg G, I can deal with. Yeah. If he comes up with if Liam comes up to me with another Acid Spray Iron Moth team, I'm just signing the slip and saying congrats on your win, buddy. See you in Top Cut.
That is exactly what they were building when I talked to them yesterday.
Put a covert cloak on your team, man. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how to use that item. I
Yeah,
forget it exists. No, it was it was like a best. It was the first Pawtucket tour. We were both playing the Miraidon mirror, and Terra Ground acid spray specifically for the mirror. And I'm just like doing everything in like the math in my head. I didn't have water pool on my team, and I think that was my big mistake. And I'm like,
quark
wow,
drive, quark drive, fast quark drive mons in the mirror are just mean. You're like,
it is.
my team's good, and then you like run into Iron Valiant, and you're like, what? How? As huh? What am I supposed to do? It's like
Yeah,
those teams are mean.
I had a
Um,
play. I think it's like I did miss like a Draco or something that 1000% lost the game for me. But even me clicking that Draco, I'm like, this is a Hail Mary. Like, I need this to connect. I forgot what it was I was targeting. Like, I needed to connect. I needed to KO because I wasn't sure if I was picking that up or not. And even if I did get that, I still think Liam just beats me.
yeah, but
So just
I was
crazy talented player. Liam Khan acid spray is like the New England Wolfie compound parry.
the no, but June, I think like the Urshifu stuff is like tough, and I don't really think it's gonna get any better because every Kali Isis Terrifier Fire Pond is the most represented form of the Ogre Ponds as of right now. Um, I just I don't I don't really know that it's gonna get any better um,
Yeah.
from from this. And there's a lot of Amoongus here. I I don't know, man. I know I'm talking to a lot of Amoongus people, but in a regulation where there's so much Miraidon, it's a lot tougher of a sell than it normally is in a GS. So I don't think everyone's just going to be able. I know it did well this tournament, but I don't know if in the long term everyone's just going to be able to say, "Well, I put a Rocky Helmet of Moongus on my team, Urshift box somewhat checked." Like I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah,
So
it
one of
just
the
seems
sets,
so bad. Like because on Miraidon teams, like you were saying, you need the Urshifu to hit all the Terra grounds that are going to be on everywhere. On the Kali Shadow teams, you want an Urshifu. You know, if it's a Scarf Urshifu, that's cool because it beats other Kali Shadows. Or you run Sash because it's just a broken Pokemon. You want the Scarf Urshifu on your Kali Ice teams as your fast mode. You want the Urshifu on your Zamazenta teams because you're going to have a Chen Pao and a Rillaboom there, so you might as well have an Urshifu. Like, there's just no reason to not use this Pokemon, and it's infuriating because I
What do
love
you
clicking
think?
Protect.
What do you think Dark Foo's usage would be if it didn't have to split with Urshifu? Like obviously its usage isn't going to be high if Urshifu's making up like 60% of the field, but just imagine Dark Foo isn't called Urshifu. You know what I mean? Like I think maybe both the mods are just on every team.
yeah,
Like
no, they
Yeah,
probably are.
it's crazy. I can't
like
believe VGC players whine about Urshifu. I knew, but I cannot believe that they nerfed Zacian's ability and they didn't nerf Surging Strikes. It's like, are you
yeah,
kidding me? What are we
And like
talking about?
the nerf for Urshifu is just so blatantly obvious. You just make it. You can still have it hit through Protect, which is still just disgustingly broken. But you make it do 25% damage, just like every other move that we've had that hits through Protect, Z moves, Max moves, anything that hits through Protect only does a quarter damage.
Which one did they nerf? Was it Wicked Blow? It was Wicked Blow,
They
right? Or
nerf
was it
Wicked
Surging
Blow.
yeah,
Strikes? How do
Yeah,
you
yeah. They
nerf?
so
made Wicked
How do
Blow
you not
weaker, but
work
not
if Surging Strikes? That's like
because Wicked
unbelievable.
Blow was base 80 and the sum of the three surging strikes is 75. So they nerfed it
I
down
know,
to
but
match
you
it.
get to hit
but
3 times, and it's
exactly. Like
oh my
Dark
god.
Urshifu, the very least you can put a Sash Pokemon in front of a Dark Fu, and that like will survive the turn. You can't do that against Water Fu.
You
It's
absolutely can.
God.
Unless you just, and that is the thing, like we would have, I think it was, I forgot which one of you it was with, or just in our group in general, we were like, oh yeah, we have to also just make sure, I think it was like on our rock pond or on our sash wimps, make sure you put a bit of a like bulk into your sashed or sturdy mon, because
Yeah,
if you don't, you're going to actually lose the spawn to a Urshifu high roll.
yeah. I'm
It's
putting
the
80 force.
Whimsicott.
It was the Wims. Yeah, it was the
Yeah,
Wims.
I don't know if there's like a rock pond top, but I specifically remember I was running Max Wims, and then we got Rajan's. I forget whether it was Rajan's team or someone else who had iterated, and they're like, "Nope, you need this much defense so you don't die to like surging strikes in the rain or something through your
Which is
focus
just
attack."
like
I was like, "You have
which is
got
just
to be
absolute
kidding me!"
bull.
No, like they're making me run 84 defense on my Sash Cali Shadow or however much you need on like Sash Torn for like Scarf Urshifu. It's awful. Like
Yeah,
I hate that
But it
guy.
at the same time though, like I will say this, it's awful in a very defined and well-known way. If I get got by an Urshifu, it's because I didn't prep for it. I didn't team build well. I didn't practice my lines into it. And I'm okay with getting got by me saying, "Oh yeah, I just sucked," instead of me getting got by Sneasler just spamming Dire Claw like a child going through the E4, and it's like, "Oh, rolled sleep," because that's what it feels like. I don't think I'm alone in this. I don't know
No,
The
you.
like
only positive thing about Urshifu is that it's just like such an anti BS mon. Like the always critting is like both annoying, but also it that's the only positive I take away from it is like you can just like if someone wants to like not play the game, you can just like punish them for it at least. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is like I'm saying all this stuff and I hate Urshifu and I hate playing against it. I will be running an Urshifu on every one of my teams in Reg G. I'm gonna love clicking my like Terra Stellar Surging Strikes next to Chen Pao or like my Terra Ghost Scarf Water Fu in the rain. Like I do love clicking it. It is so good.
Oh no, it is.
Angelo, what was the oh sorry. I was just gonna ask what the Chen Pao usage was. Because I feel like Chen Pao is like the thing that I missed the most in the last reg. Like just like having a thing to um like boost the damage of things that just needed it like a little bit. So 16. Okay.
Yep. So 16th overall and top 64. It moved up to 12, and
And
it was
he had
mostly
55% win rate.
yep, very good win rate. Mostly used with the Zamazenta teams, and Zamazenta did have a really good week this week. So going into the teams itself, as you can see, Zama came in 6th and 7th. Actually, what we can do, we have the notes here. Going into day one to day two usage, and then day two to cut. So out of the 76 ice riders, nine of the 76 day two'd, and then two of those nine cut with a peak in top four. Shadow Rider had 8 of its 67 make day two, and then 4 make top cut, peaking in first place. Miraidon, 5 out of the 60 Miraidon, 5 made day two, 2 in top cut with a peak in top 8. 31 Zama, 8 in day two, 2 to top cut. 30 Terapagos, 4 to day two, 3 to top cut. 23 Kyogre, 4 to day two, 1 to top cut. 13 Zacian, 3 to day two, 2 to top cut. And the other mon I have usage on is Lunala, 7 Lunala, 1 into day two, and that one also top cut. Got that from Root to Iris from the in the Justin Knox server, so shout out to them for putting that all together. Going through this, the day two conversion rate for Zamazenta being at 25.8%, that's pretty significant, seeing that like 30 of them were in the tournament. So it was the fourth most used restricted, and it had the second, and it tied with Shadow Rider, who had more than double usage for second place in day two restricteds.
Can I say something that's probably bad podcasting?
Yeah.
I don't think any of those numbers matter. I will defer to June on how good the big shield dog is.
Same.
But like, man, it's not that good. Like, it's not that level of like conversion. I think some good players just played it, maybe rolled some good matchups. Like, I can't put anything else in the same group as the Callies and Miraidon. I know Miraidon had a really bad showing today, but it's like one online tournament when no one's touched the format in like months. Like,
Yeah.
I think this stuff is interesting, but like,
I'm
not gonna take away from this that like, oh, actually Zamazenta belongs in that top 4. With it's like, I don't know, man. I don't think it does, because it still just dies to like Electro Drift.
I definitely think it's firmly in 4th place. I think it's probably better than Terapagos, or at least at the same level of
matches up with
Terapagos and Kyogre.
Terapagos.
Matches up insanely well to Terapagos. But I think it's like, yeah, you have your tier 1 of the horses and Miraidon, and then your tier 2 is probably Zama, Terapagos, and Kyogre.
Maybe Zacian. I'm a Zacian believer, so I will throw out everything I said about this not mattering and look at Zacian's conversion rate, because it's good. No, but I don't know. But yeah, I do think it's like those 3 are still. But I would like to hear June talk about it, because June has played a lot of Shield Dog, and I have played 0 Shield Dog.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, yes, Zamazenta is not one of the horses or Miraidon, but Zamazenta I think is like head and shoulders above the rest of them. Still, it's like the top 3, Zama, and then everybody else for me, and that is only like validated by that conversion rate. Because while you all might not be drinking the Kool-Aid, I'm fully back on the train, baby. Zamazenta is so good. I love that guy. I will not be playing it because I do want to win games, and I do think that Zamazenta is very, very good. It'll continue to be the most underrated single restricted, and once double restricted comes around, the Zamazenta Kali Shadow teams are just going to run over everybody.
I don't really get how the tournament played out the way it did, because like I feel like Shadow Rider did really well and Zamazenta did really well, and usually it's one or the other, right? Like usually, it's a heavy Kali Ice and Terapagos weekend, so all those Zamazentas like ate up those Terapagoses, you know what I mean? Or it's like, it's a more Miraidon heavy weekend, and like the Zamazentas lose. Like, it's very strange for me to see like Kali Shadow do so well and Zamazenta do so well, considering like what their relationship was when we played Reg G last time, and how much of a circle it was of what part of the format are we in.
Yeah, I think the big one is that a lot of the Zamazenta teams that did well, and the 2 that were in cut, are just variations of the Michael Derbesti team. Like, those are just it's the Wide Guard Zama, the Banded Entei, I think the Urshifu is Goggles, maybe, and I'm like 90% sure it is Taunt, Speed Booster Flutter, like, that team in particular, like that team comp, is, number 1, very good into Miraidon. You have your Speed Booster Flutter, you've got your AV Rillaboom, you have a whole Chen Pao. Like, the Miraidon matchup is like fine to good for that team. And speaking from my experience playing a lot of very similar Zamazenta teams, you can beat Miraidon pretty consistently if you just play your Rillaboom and your Chen Pao pretty well. But so I'm thinking that contributed a lot to the fall of Miraidon, is like those teams just weren't ready for this version of Zamazenta. And Zama also just beats all the Terapagoses. Like, I think it just ended up like working out perfectly that Zamazenta beat all the Terapagoses that let Kali Shadow get into like day 2 and get into top cut. And then once you got into cut, you see the Kali Shadow mirror basically in finals, because they just got to beat the Zamazentas. Because, I mean, like, you know, what is this team doing to it, especially a Covert Cloak Calyrex Shadow, which I think first and second both were. Like, what are you doing there?
Cloak actually, I was going to say we can throw it out. Like, we do have the team up right now. This was Darth Morton, who finished in 6th place.
Urshifu set straight to jail. Just do not pass go. Go straight to jail. I don't know what to tell you, man. Obviously it's good. I feel like we saw someone else run something similar. I don't remember, but the no CC substitute is very funny.
So
there's no taunt on this.
Yeah, I was going to say I like taunt on my Goggles Urshifu. I was actually running that on Miraidon specifically for like this Calyrex Ice matchup.
But you run CC over Jet if you're taunt.
Yes, I do run CC over Jet, and the double.
So you're not running the same thing. You're running 2 of the same moves.
It is, but it's the same item, so you know they're cousins.
He's so right. It's the same item.
You're so right, bestie.
This is the item I actually remember that I have on. But yeah, going through the other aspects of this team, I think seeing Entei having a banded Terra Normal, Inner Focus, E-Speed next to Shampoo back in the format. All things have normalized.
Speaks to me.
No more false prophets of multi-scale Dragonite. We're done with that. This is just click the funny button over and over again until your opponent concedes.
Yeah, it's KO the Frugraph and then do that.
Oh yes, you have to do that, and that's why you're running the Double Dark on the Chien-Pao. Instead of having another coverage move like Sacred Sword, you're going with the Sucker Punch and the Throat Chop, specifically so that your Chien-Pao isn't not completely useless, but severely mitigated by the opposing Farigiraf.
I feel like we talk about Double Dark Chien-Pao all the time in Cats when it comes up.
We really, it's
good.
We're just like, yeah, just run Double Dark.
Yeah,
you don't need Sacred Sword.
Do you want Throat Chop or do you want Crunch? Like that's the only question.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that this one is Crash. I know it has Rilla, but it's like weird to see a not spinner POW in a format that has so much like terrain and where I don't necessarily think Rilla needs its terrain to like function all the
It's probably a calc. Like
I could say,
yeah,
I think it's
like
probably.
you
I think
need
it's
to
like a
be
Flutter
Crash.
calc, right, or something.
Flutter, and I believe you need Crash to
Miraidon.
I was going to say Miraidon and then Raging Bolt.
Miraidon with Terra, right? Or like you get it when it doesn't Terra, right?
I don't think Spinner always. You can live Spinner pretty easily if you're the Miraidon. And then like Raging Bolt too. Like Raging Bolt can live the Crash, but most of them aren't, or at least at the end of Reg G, most of them weren't, because they're just gonna Terra Electric and Thunderclap you first anyway.
Yeah, so going through, like, looking at the calcs, so Jolly, so I'm using the set that that Luca used for Worlds, which was a 44 HP, 4 defense Miraidon. It's a roll with Spinner from Jolly, Chien-Pao, a roll in your favor, 68.75%, but still a roll, while Icicle Crash will 100% pick up with that bulk.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then
if you're Jolly, you have to be Jolly.
Yeah, you have to be Jolly because, like, you want, like, I mean, Luca did run Modest Miraidon, but it's probably gotten to the point where you probably need to be timid.
Luca probably ran Modest Miraidon because he was Jolly Chien-Pao.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess you could run, like, 204, but, like, at that point, what's the point? Like, you're playing for the speed tie. So I feel like I was running Miraidon Chien-Pao, and I just did the opposite. I just made the Miraidon faster and the Chien-Pao the slower, higher attack boosting nature. But I feel like that's probably it. If in a vacuum, not in a vacuum, but if those two were not on the team together, I feel like you're probably always going timid unless you're shooting for some specific calc.
Yeah. So after going over 6th place, we can finally go over our 1st place team. This was Burning Blazer, a Australian player who ran, again, Calyrex Shadow Balance, using Nasty Plot, Psychic Calyrex with a Life Orb, Terra Dark, Terra Fairy, Booster, Raging Bolt, the classic Sash Stellar, Urshifu, AV Rillaboom, Mental Herb Amoonguss with Sludge Bomb over Pollen Puff, and Helping Hand, Rocky Helmet, Incineroar.
I love funny Incineroar sets. I know I said the Urshifu set needs to go to jail, but when people have funny Incineroar sets, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, the Incine's awesome. The Amoonguss, like, hurts me. You know, because that's all I play is, you know, Incin Amoonguss, insert other balance pieces here. I need to click, like, Parting Shot and Pollen Puff to feel anything. And I get it. Like, you're not pollen puffing anything on this team anyway. You have a Cali Shadow that is knocking down its own HP with Life Orb every turn. This Raging Bolt, honestly, if it's not just max speed, max special attack, I'd be a little bit surprised, or at least like close to that. The Urshifu is sashed. You know, you might be able to pollen puff your Incin and your Rillaboom, but like, you're just going to get a lot more value out of Sludge Bomb. But I don't know. Dropping Pollen Puff always just feels bad on Amoonguss. Like, it feels like Amoonguss should just always get Pollen Puff as a 5th move.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I know that was a big argument in Wolf's, I believe it was his Orlando Regionals video, that he was like, you can't, most people would keep Pollen Puff and drop the Protect, but he said he's like, you want to be able to protect your Amoonguss, especially this one that is using the Mental Herb instead of the Covert Cloak that usually would go with the 4-attack Amoonguss. So if you want to be Mental Herb, you have to keep the Protect, and it is that how much am I going to get out of the Pollen Puff healing compared to a Moongus actually having a move it can consistently click in Sludge Bomb that I can do for a support Pokemon a respectable amount of damage and potentially roll a poison and just win a game off of that.
If you get the poison, you can 2-hit KO Rillaboom.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a good move.
What do you all think is going to be the Cali Shadow set of the format? My brain always goes to Covert Cloak, Terra Fairy, Draining Kiss. But I know we've seen some specs. I know on other teams we've seen Psyshock. We've seen Leverage and DD Terrain. I wonder where we're gonna go.
Well, looking at the top two teams, moving on to second place, we can kind of talk about this. M & Co, pretty much relatively the same team. The only difference is dropping Ogerpon. I'm dropping Amoonguss for Ogerpon, going with the more offensive Follow Me user or Redirection Mon. Running Incineroar as a fire type with Flare Blitz instead of having it have its another support move, like the Helping Hand. And the Calyrex Shadow being a Spell Tag Terra Normal set instead of the Life Orb Terra Dark. The move set on the Cali is the same, and I'd like to think that the standard is probably going to end up being something like this. Nasty Plot with a Psychic coverage move, whether it's Psychic or Psyshock, with a boosting item and a Terra type that resists other Cali Shadow. So your Calyrex could also be its own answer.
Yeah, I know I did say earlier that I thought that both the top two teams were Covert Cloak. I think that was mostly just projecting because I'm in that same boat as Chris. I think Covert Cloak is still the best item, at least right now on Calyrex. But I also anticipated to seeing a whole lot more Scarf Snarl Chi-Yu, Snarl Incineroar potentially, Snarl Raging Bolt. I anticipated seeing a lot more stat dropping, but I mean, if you're just playing the Cali Shadow Mirror, there's no Icy Wind that you have to worry about. There are no Snarls. All you have to do is just this, boost your damage. This one's running the wrong item. It should be Spooky Plate.
That is correct.
Thank you. But you can just use your Calyrex Shadow to just do damage. I think that's going to be the big thing, is finding ways to win on the margins. They're going to be, everybody should be calculating to live the standard Cali Shadow Astral Barrages or Psychics or +1 whatever attacks. So putting a Life Orb, putting a Spooky Plate on there is going to just push you over the edge there. The same thing that those weirdos tried to do with Never Melt Ice, Cali Ice at Worlds. Just forgetting that Amoonguss or that Incineroar existed, apparently. But except you can actually do that with Cali Shadow because it's so much more self-sufficient and we don't have a special Intimidate.
And Snarl can also miss. If you're up against a Snarlmon, 5% chance that you're cool. So, better than nothing.
Yeah, I think Specs is really good too. Specs Cali Shadow, I don't think we saw it very much, if at all, in day 2 of the Sphere Pillar Tour. But there are, there's Rockwell in New England who just spammed his Cali Shadow in DD Female, Mienshao, Speed Booster Roaring Moon with Rock Slide, just truly devious things. So I might be a little bit biased, but that Specs Cali Shadow, the damage I saw that Pokemon do to neutral and resisted hits, should be illegal. It's so gross.
So when I first met Rockwell, we played against each other at a challenge, and he was using that team, and I had a Ditto, and I just let him KO my lead Pokemon, and I just looked at him, and he looked at me. He said, "Ditto's in the back, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy." And he's like, "It's scarfed, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy."
Yeah.
Ditto being good is also something I'm looking forward to because Ditto is a degenerate Pokemon that I just absolutely love. Looking at the data, Life Orb was the most used item on the Day 2 Calyrex, or at least the 12 Calyrex that made top 64. Covert Cloak and Spell Tag were tied for second with 3 apiece, and then there was one Spooky Plate and one Choice Specs that made Day 2. Or at least, like, again, top 64. So
Choice Specs Pollen Puff is mean.
yeah, no,
You're just
Pollen
like,
Puff.
I resist this, and then you're just like, this can't hurt me. And then, like, it killed my Farigiraf one time, and I was like, what?
Yeah, people forget that Pollen Puff is
What do
like
you
a
mean?
base 80 attack.
It's 90.
It's
base
90? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
forgetting what its base power
That's
is.
what I'm saying. Pollen Puff's a crazy move. Specs Pollen Puff should also heal your partner 75%. And I will never not stop saying that.
Moving on to the next team. This is the first team that I think we can actually like discuss like differences on. Third place is a Zacian team with Terra Ground, Terra Blast, and Sacred Sword. No fairy coverage. We have the Rain mode with the Scarf Urshifu and Tornadus. Again, the non-respectable Prankster mode. And on the right side of your screen, you just see a ton of fun little guys. You have Teal Mask Ogerpon with Sash, Reggie Drago with Life Orb, and Safety Goggles for Farigiraf.
Yeah, this is cool. Like, this is where we finally start seeing like the fun that people can have in Reg G. For me, the things that stand out are the Farigiraf. You've got Safety Goggles and Terra Fire, both of which were not very common in this tournament. I think the standards were like Terra Dark or Terra Water on the Farigiraf.
It was water.
So seeing the Terra Fire here makes a ton of sense. You've got a Regidrago and an Urshifu that I hate to see fairy type moves, so having resist for that is really important. But that plus the Ogerpon, like the shenanigans that you can get up to with like a Helping Hand Terra Water Scarf Urshifu, or an Ogerpon that just boosts its speed immediately and can't be faked out because of Armor Tail, like this is so much fun.
The Ogerpon is one of the ultimate Incineroar counters. After the Defiant boost that it gets, Superpower will OHKO an Incineroar that doesn't Terra. So you're either forcing the Terra immediately, in which you can Foul Play into that spot with the Farigiraf, because now Foul Play does super effective damage, or they just lose their Incineroar, which is one of the best Pokemon into this team, to be able to fake out the Terra Water Scarf Urshifu, and of course Intimidate cycle down the Zacian. So for String to like keep that with his with their type cores, getting the Terra Fire with a Grass and Water type, along with the 2-mon Fantasy Core between Zacian and Regidrago. Having that in mind is great. Just understanding how you can use a specific Pokemon to do a specific thing to solve a problem Pokemon for your team. That's like my favorite part of a regulation like this, because like not many Pokemon can do what Ogerpon does for this team, and even though it's not the most common Pokemon, it probably is the right Pokemon to use because it does that specific thing.
It should be loaded Dice Bullet Seed, but you can excuse it.
Sicko.
Now, if you've got Sash open, I like Sash on that.
Yeah.
Now, how much defense do you think that Ogerpon has for like Surging Strikes in the rain?
Well, let's find out.
While you do that,
I was gonna say, just sitting there and calculating it and being like, "This is probably what it has," because this is what it needs to survive.
Okay, so let me go Adamant.
I don't really think you need.
You don't.
So I was gonna say Fire Pond survives like non-boosted. Obviously,
yes.
Boosted changes it a lot, but
so
like
Adamant, Mystic Water, Urshifu in the rain does 73 to 86% to 4 HP Ogerpon, but you probably want to move that 4 HP to defense because that's more optimal in that sense. Literally just moving it to. It doesn't change much. Yeah, it lives. which is pretty
Good for
great.
him.
And you also, since you're just naturally faster, you just Terra, and then you press the funny bonk button, which after Terra, you will always KO, even when Jolly.
I would be
Oh my god,
irresponsible with
I
Ogerpon
cannot
and
wait
the
to click.
ability to Terra it, because I'd be like, I'd see a Flutter Mane and my like intrusive thoughts would win. I'd be like, just do it, just do it, just
Yeah.
do it. And then they would like protect in, and then they would switch an instant next turn, and I would have screwed up everything. But like, I would be so hyped to do it. I'd be like, come on, they probably like, because I know when I play against Ogerpon, I forget the interaction. I'll be like, oh, it'll just, well, it's not going to do anything. And then it tear grasses, and you like remember it's getting the speed boost, and you're like, oh no, oh
No,
golly.
that's my favorite thing. I used like grass pond for a week maybe in like Reg F and got my +1 Teal Ogre Pond in front of a Tornadus Chen Pao and just clicked Terra Grass Ivy Cudgel +1 attack with Sword of Ruin. I did crit the Tornadus and it did matter, but just being able to delete Tornadus with that.
Crits are your right as an Ogerpon player.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I'm saying.
You deserve those.
I was
Yeah,
Razor
Urshifu
Claw too,
players
so it was
get 'em.
50%.
Oh, okay.
Still,
It was awesome.
It's
But-
crazy how much a generation changes that I like want to root for Zamazenta. I like want to be like, you can do it, you plucky little underdog.
Oh, you mean Zacian? Yeah. Like,
Oh, yeah,
like
sorry.
Yeah,
But yeah.
like this Pokemon was the bane of everyone's existence, and Genetic Zacian is one of the most broken Pokemon ever. Pretty much, I think the only thing that would top it in terms of VGC dominance would be like 2018 Xerneas from the stories all the old heads tell. But even then, it's like I think Zacian had just generally more usage.
Well, the crazy thing is, I don't really think they had to nerf it. Like, Dynamax doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like you could have nerfed one thing or the other. You could have nerfed the attack stat, or you could have nerfed the ability. But by nerfing both, you've just kind of made it so, like, okay, if everything does go well, I don't hit hard enough. And then if something doesn't go well and I have to come out and come back in, I'm like done. Like, I'm not doing anything anymore.
Yeah,
I
think
think
the ability change was good.
yes.
I think like the
See,
ability
I would rather the ability come back. I don't know, because it's like I don't want to like make Zacian teams have to be like this hyper offense mess. Like, I want a Zacian balance team where like if someone come in and their Incineroar intimidates me, I don't just like lose. You know what I mean? Because it's like Groudon doesn't have that. Like, you intimidate Groudon, I can still come back out and come back in. I don't know. I would rather the attack
but you
get
have to
nerfed
click
and the ability
P-blades.
stay.
Exactly, but with Groudon, like best case scenario, you've got a combined 60-something% chance to hit both. Like,
Yeah.
that's awful. With Zacian, at least, the thing is, nerfing the ability now makes Zacian players have to actually play the game. Like, now Zacian takes skill to play, as opposed to just being
because
able to switch it out.
they're all just playing dirty HO. You can't play Zacian. I mean, Zacian balance does exist. We saw it be played in different variations at the end. You just have to be very careful. But like, I feel like nerfing the ability just leads to like this HO slop where it's like, okay, I'll bring out Regidrago, I'll click Dragon Energy after I get up Tailwind, and then Zacian will clean up the end game. Like, obviously your opponent has agency in that, but I would rather see like a more of a slow, balancy game.
Like, I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down, Chris, and I think if it didn't also nerf the attack stat, because that's the bigger thing. It's if you still had the very, very high attack stat, you're okay saying, I'm cool with losing my Intrepid Sword boost. I can still get it done just with the naturally insane stats that I have. The fact that it's like, okay, my stats are worse, and now I can't pivot around, I can't play with that slot. Once it's in, it's kind of in. That's definitely that double whammy. On top of the fact that unless you're Terra Fairy, you don't have an accurate fairy type move, which would be really useful for Zacian. Those, like, all of that combined makes it a Pokemon that, weirdly enough, is a lot worse in a metagame where one of the three best Pokemon is a Dragon type.
But you don't need the fairy move because I'm looking at this play rough less Terra Ground Terra Blastation. That's your Miraidon answer.
That is your Miraidon answer.
You Terra Ground Terra Blast because you don't miss those.
No, because this is what the Miraidon player is going to do to you. They're going to Volt Switch the other side. You're going to Terra Ground, and then they're going to come back in and Draco you. It's like no one is falling for that bait. There's no Miraidon player above 1100 on Showdown who's falling for that.
Yeah, but that's the thing with Zacian, though, is that you actually have to like position it well now, so that your opponent can't just do that. You know, that's why you have the Regidrago or the Urshifu. Like that comes in and punches holes, so your opponent can switch in fewer times. Like,
and this is like actually like it's not just for Miraidon. Like it's for Miraidon offensively, but it's like it's not just a 50-50 defensive Terra coin flip. Like, you know what I mean? It's like if it was just that, it probably wouldn't be good. But because you get the offensive utility from it too, it's like a real viable set.
Yeah, and it's the same thing like Whimsicots did running Terra Ground, where if it's a Specs Miraidon, you can always just see what they lock into. You just protect, scout what they lock into, and then if it's a Dragon move, you don't Terra, of course, and if it's an Electric move, you do. Like, you're able to pin the Miraidon teams very well with the Terra Groundization. And that's something that we've seen on every team is multiple, if not like clear Miraidon answers by Pokemon choice, then by moveset or Terra, just to beat that one Pokemon because it is that strong, as we saw all throughout Reg G. Part 1.
Yes. So moving on to our next team, fourth place, Code Anish. This is a rip of the second place Worlds team. The rain mode with Waterfoo and Pelipper. This one being a Life Orb Pelipper with Helping Hand and Wide Guard, no Protect. Iron Valiant, Amoonguss, and the Scarf Landorus. And of course, Calyrex Ice. This is a Pokemon between the Urshifu and the Urshifu, the Landorus, and the Booster Valiant. You can play pretty fast while also playing a really good slow mode with just Calyrex and Amoonguss. And this Amoonguss being the 4-attack version with Clear Smog and Rocky Helmet instead of Covert Cloak.
Yeah,
I like the...
No, Chris.
I was just going to say, I like the coaching. I feel like maybe Scarf coaching Urshifu maybe makes more sense than Valiant. But then I guess you lose the ability for your Lando to be Scarf. But I always feel like coaching next to Cali Ice is so terrifying because it's like you get to attack and set up the same turn. And then if things go wrong, it's like, I expected them to click Trick Room. So I send in my Trick Room answers. And now I've taken a +1 Glacial Lance and I'm not going to survive another one. You know what I mean? So I feel like the coaching is very scary.
Yeah, and like, of course, this team is good. It finished second at Worlds. I still just can't believe there are only 2 Protects on it.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing for me.
2 Protects, and it's 1-2 Terra Ghosts. Like, yeah, you have double Wide Guard, and, Pokemon like Amoonguss doesn't really need Protect because it's so bulky, plus you have Rocky Helmet if they want to fake you out. But it feels so disrespectful.
Double
my bigger
Wide Guard's
issue,
so wild. I didn't even see that. That's wild.
No, the double Wide Guard's sick. But my bigger issue is that, at least through most of the results from the Spirit Pillar, the teams that did the best in this tournament are just, either exact rips from teams from Worlds or slight variations on that. The Kali Shadow balance that was all over the place. You've got Yuta's team right here. We already talked about the Michael Derbesti team. Like, I was really hoping to see a lot more kind of innovation, which is foolish of me to expect before the format even officially starts. And this is also people who are trying to do well in this tournament, so you're just going to use a good team. But that was really hopeful,
Yeah, I think what
Zamazenta.
you just said hit the nail on the head. It's like, again, this was a tournament in collaboration with USPA, and I do know that there were team captains who, instead of hosting like a local, like some communities don't have a network like New England where we have a massive Discord server with all of our players and all of our TOs, and we know everyone, and we're always at events together. Like, a lot of times it's just I'm looking at the sign up list. I don't know any of these people. So, hey, I'm playing this tournament because it's an easy thing that's already like organized for me, and I just got to look at the results after to see did you do well or not. And which is why, again, you're seeing a lot of teams pulled from Worlds, and Worlds did push the envelope. We weren't seeing Scarflando on non Kyogre teams before Worlds. We weren't seeing Iron Valiant, let alone Iron Valiant as a potential Miraidon answer on like really any team, especially a Calyrex Ice team. So this team itself, it seems boring because we've seen it before. We fully have seen this thing in action, but if we showed you this team like a week after NAIC, you would have been like, it's absolutely crazy. That's not the Calyrex team that just won NAIC. Why are you playing around with this? Like, why aren't you just using the balance version? And that's because, like, at least for that Worlds meta and this early Regulation G, this is probably the better version of the team to use. So I think that's like one of the real interesting aspects of it. Like, it seems boring. Like, the next team that we're about to go over is also pretty much a direct rip of the Worlds team, but it still is a situation where it's like, if you saw this team in the middle of July of this year, it would have been crazy. And that team, 8th place King of Yi, who used a rip of the first place team. Instead of it being Water Fu, we went with the Sash Dark Fu, but we're still going with the Ogerpon Heartflame, Iron Hands, Farig, Whims, and Miraidon. With this being the single screen Whims that was popping up big time towards the latter part of the first half of Regulation G.
No one needs me to like explain to them this, but the Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam was such like a neat innovation that people were running early format. We were like, this is really bad. And then like kind of for the reasons that June was talking about, like where you can get sort of locked into these end games, like Dazzling Gleam is such a nice end game check over Discharge, just as a spread move that doesn't hurt you, as a way to beat Iron Hands, as a way to beat Raging Bolt. That was the number one thing that when I started running Dazzling Gleam Terra Fairy, I was like, wait, you can just get Raging Bolt with this?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. So, like I said, no one needs me to explain that, but I love the Dazzling Gleam Terra Fairy. It's so good. I mean, this is basically what me and you were playing by the end of last format.
Pretty much.
Without the Dark. The Dark Fu was different on various teams, but I think we were running Urshifu Rapid Strike, but yeah, I mean, this team rocks.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was doing was I was also playing around with Grim and with Volcarona, but like we've been on Heartflame on Miraidon since like May. After whatever the first, I think it was Indianapolis regionals, whatever the first regionals was, the next day we were looking at this team and saying, like, Heartflame is just better, especially with the meta updates of, okay, people are going to be running more Rillaboom, they're going to be running more ground types. Like, Heartflame is better than Rockpon on this comp, and it's really continued to show. Being able to just have a button in Ivy Cudgel that deletes your opponent's Rillaboom, it's just so good. Heck, one of the great things with it, so Adamant Heartflame, Terra Adamant Heartflame can Oko Terra Grass Kyogre with Ivy Cudgel in the rain. Like, so you can play those fun 50-50s of, okay, if you do Terra, you're going to eat this Volt Switch or this Electro Drift and you die. If you do Terra, have fun getting bonked and also dying. And especially like when people don't know that calc, it's like they'll just Terra because they're like, oh, I could live it. It's the rain's up, and then they're shocked when you just pick up the KO, no crit. It's so good.
Yeah, when I won the Philly local. That's like what happened basically. I played like 2 Kyogre and Swiss. They were both Terra Grass. Neither of them knew I could KO them, so I didn't even have to make the 50-50. I just double protected turn 1 with Whims, and then I just got it the next turn with
Yeah.
Terrifier, Ivy Cudgel, and the Raid. It was so good. But I am personally very interested to see what the iteration on this team is. Because I do think it struggles a little bit into Terrifier, Cali Ice, which I think is probably going to be the Cali Ice Terra going forward. At least it has been so far. And even though this team wasn't super popular, it can't beat the Justin Knox Weezing team. It can't do it. You just have nothing. You have nothing into Weezing, Cali Shadow. I mean, you can try to play like Farigiraf hands into it, but you still just lose. So it's like, I was looking at it today. I was like, I don't know, man. What am I supposed to run Regieleki because it's the only thing that's faster than it, and then you still lose to it if it's Covert Cloak because Electro Web doesn't drop its speed? Am I supposed to run Ability Shield Whimsicott for this one matchup? Like, I was like, what? So I am interested to see, one, hopefully the Justin Knox team just dies because I don't really want to have to deal with that. But secondly, if it doesn't, I really don't want to have to figure out how to beat that thing. It's enough that I was like, should I just play Cali Shadow? I was like, should I just do it? I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close.
Yeah, like I think what you said, like the two big things with Miraidon. I know, June, the last time you and I played in Regulation G was right before Worlds, and you've switched to the Terrifier Cali Eye after the entire Cats Discord bullied you into stopping yourself from playing Zama at Worlds. And even with, like, I think I was using Volcarona at the time, and I'm like, okay, Volcarona does super, super well into Cali Eye as long as it's not Terrifier, and if it's Terrifier, I kind of have no matchup. And that's what happened. You 2-0'd me pretty handily. And even before Worlds, like playing, I think it was the first Pawtucket tournament, I was up against Gerd. I played him once, and he was using the Weezing Dozo Cali S before Nox really showed it out at Worlds. And when I played him in Swiss, he just didn't bring Weezing, and I won handily. And then we played each other in top 4, and he brought Weezing both games. I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm like, my win con is you click the wrong button or timeout, and Weezing doesn't come. But at some point, I think people will figure out some way to use Miraidon to, like, at least like patch those two matchups. But until then, I wouldn't be shocked if it's like you can play through it super well, but there'll be a point where you just get matchup checked and you just draw the guy playing, or the player using Weezing, or you just draw the player using the Terrifier Cali, and you got to just play out of your mind or hope your opponent makes a mistake, or both.
Yeah, I think that is what, like, that might be what the Dark Fu is trying to do here. You know, at least you have something that can force the opposing Calyrex to Terra. That doesn't really get you anywhere, but
yeah, I was gonna say it really doesn't get you anything. In the matchup.
No, that's like,
at the very least the Weezing
like,
can't Terra.
Yeah, because it doesn't do anything, especially because it's Galarian Weezing. They want to see you bring your Dark Fu because they get to click their funny button, and I mean, like, a little like Twinkle Tackle is going to go, and I will Twinkle Tackle that's a Z move. Of course, it's going to OHKO you, but yeah, like it's pick a fairy type attack, and this thing's dropping to Sash. And for the Calyrex, yes, they want to go Terrifier. That's the whole point. So you can't go and get rid of the Calyrex with Ogerpon.
Oh yeah, but yeah, no, the Cali Ice matchup.
Cali Shadow.
I was talking about Cali Shadow.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Cali Ice matchup, like, that is just one that I think Miraidon players have to just kind of like hold. You know, like when at locals playing, you know, players other than Angelo as well, like the Terrifier Cali Ice can just click Trick Room and then Glacial Lance a million times. Like the only time I ever lost that matchup was one of the 2 Miraidons I played at Worlds. Like, yeah. It's pretty straightforward, especially if the Iron Hands of Terra Grass, because then your Calyrex always pins it with one of its attacks. Yeah. The only adaptation that made it a little bit difficult was like low kick on Iron Hands over that heavy slam, because then at least you can 2-hit KO the Calyrex once terrain is up. So you like, you know, you get yourself into a position where you can like psychic noise the Calyrex so they can't paw and puff it. You have terrain up. and then you can low kick twice, but that's also assuming that your Iron Hands doesn't just get KO'd first.
You don't switch your instant in over and over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are all kinds of other things that
I
make
will
that a lot
say,
easier too.
I think Terrifier Cali Ice is winnable. It's like hard, but like with hands, like I'm playing like Terra Water low kick AV hands, and it's like
Yeah.
exactly what you're describing. It's like, yeah, I can win that. You know what I mean? But like, you cannot beat that Weezing. You can't do it because even if you force them to Terra, the Cali's faster. You'd have to play in like a way where you still bring your Prankster Whimsicott and just set like slow Tailwind and hope that that's enough, but you're never going to get up a second Tailwind. So it's like, for Miraidon, I don't think Terrifier Cali is a huge problem. I would love the matchup to be easier, but it's not like the end of the world. You just sort of, like I said, reconfigure your handset. To beat that Weezing team, it requires like a total reimagining of the team and what it is and how it functions. And it might not be worth that for that one matchup, but like I said, it requires a complete sea change. You probably have to lean into some weird Regieleki hyper offense, or you have to play like this slow defensive core that can eat hit from Cali Shadow so that like Miraidon can come in at the end and finish it. You know what I mean? It's like a very, very strange like matchup to have to play.
Yeah. So I did realize we jumped to 8th place. We skipped 5th place, which is the only other unique team in the top 8. And it's playing with one of the other top restricteds that we saw at this tournament, Terapagos.
That's right. Screamtail, the best
I was going to say, the best restricted in that first slot right there. I was so upset. First of all, the disrespect to my new GOAT, Chad Gaming 16. And also...
Huge Chad Gaming 16 people
biggest
in the
Chad
call
Gaming
tonight.
16.
I'm honestly Chad Gaming 16's biggest fan now. To top 8 with your Terapagos that at most will get to click 8 attacks in a game, and probably less than that. And a Screamtail, that's beautiful. To me, this is art. Like the Calm Mind substitute Terapagos with lefties, like I'm certain this person set up a substitute and then just got right back to full behind the sub with grassy terrain and leftovers because their opponent just couldn't move. Like, it's
How
so
do you
funny.
beat a single team that has a Snarlmon on it? What is the plan?
I think the
I guess
plan
disable
is-
Snarl.
Disable.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
is fake out and disable.
within the top 64, we did have 4 substitute substitute Terapagos. 7 Terapagos made top 64, with 5 of them being Calm Mind lefties, 2 of them being Specs, and out of the 5 lefties, 4 of them decided to be this subset. I believe a few of the other high placing Terapagos were also this exact set. I forgot. I think it was some Latin American player. I also know that at least like stateside Brady Smith, I believe, brought Terapagos to Worlds. It did have a good tournament in general. And yeah, you are going and playing the Pivot Bros game, just clicking fake out
Their
U-turn,
name that I
fake out.
cannot say on this podcast.
Yes. Fake out U-turn, fake out parting shot.
I mean, we know,
Just completely
Yeah.
derailed it. If you know, you know. But yeah, it's like going and pretty much doing this to just let your Terapagos click Calm Mind like 4 or 5 times because it actually needs to click it that many times, and then go with the Terra Starstorm. One of the cool things is once you do Terra your Terapagos, like there's no resist into Terra Starstorm, which is really neat. So it's not like you can go, oh, I'm going to send my Ghost type in, I'm going to send my Rock or my Steel type in to like be immune or resist this. You are doing a lot of damage. However, you're putting literally everything on this one Pokemon doing its thing, and if you can't get it set up, like this Terapagos would hate playing in Regulation H because Haze is on literally everything, and one Haze just kills this team. Like, it's over.
I don't even know why they bothered to put Terra types on the other 5 Pokemon. What's the point? You're not
Well, like, when
running
you're looking at it, like,
You're not running Mono Terra Starstorm normal. You're not doing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like, three of the two of the Pokemon here, you have, like, their Terras are locked.
Yeah.
Or like the Urshifu, yeah, but probably for the 2% of the time you aren't clicking it. And I will say, like, Terra Starstorm as a single target move does do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
That is like the one thing. You do lose stab when you Terra. So it's like technically the single target pre-stab, like pre-Terra Starstorm technically does more damage. Of course, like, your stats are worse, but you actually get a single, it's single target, so you're not splitting the damage, and you actually get the stab boost on top of it. So I think, like, there's definitely games where you could, like, go Terra Ghost Instant, Terra Ghost Screamtail, go offensive Terra on Ogerpon or Urshifu, and just win with Terra Starstorm. Probably doesn't happen much.
No, yeah. I think, like, the only reason that the Terra types exist on Screamtail and Ensign is they're ghosts, so maybe you don't fake them out sometimes, but your opponent knows that you're not going to Terastallize either of them. I do think the substitute on Terapagos is really, really cool because that was when I was playing Terapagos, I used it at NAIC last year with a Screamtail, which was funny enough.
That's how you got
But
your Worlds Invite.
Well, yeah, before NAIC.
Before NIC, yes.
At NAIC, it was not great. But the things that I was struggling with were like, yeah, you can switch Terapagos into a Cali Shadow, but how do you capitalize on that without calling the Pokemon that they're going to switch in? You know? Where now you can switch your Terapagos into a Cali Shadow, you encore that thing into Astral Barrage, potentially, or just switch into an Astral Barrage and Protect, and then you set up a substitute as they switch, and now you have momentum. That's the big thing that Terapagos and the other, like, not as good restricteds in general, but specifically this one needs that turn of momentum, and it's so hard to get it when you have Miraidon that gets to click Volt Switch for free against every team. You have Kelly Shadow that is just turbo broken. You have Kelly Ice that is going to click Glacial Lance into your team with 3 resists and still not care. Like, it's very cool to see players actually figure out ways to get Terapagos into advantageous positions and then actually be able to capitalize on those. Even in a format where Zamazenta was not a format, but even in a tournament where Zamazenta super overperformed going into day 2.
Yeah. No, I will say it's I haven't really used Terapagos too much. If we aren't doing, like, Miraidon, things like this would be a secondary restricted I would like to play around with, just because I like turtles, and they made the turtle legendary. Overall, it is a very good Pokemon. It's just not at the level of brokenness as the horses and Miraidon. It's a fair broken Pokemon, which is a weird thing to say. And yeah, like, if you do get into a world where you're playing a lot of Cali Shadow, like, they can't click their broken move into you, but you can click your broken move into them, and I think that in itself is really neat. It becomes a battle of, can your partner Pokemon take out the Cali Shadow's partner Pokemon, as you try to get your Terapagos going. I don't know. Maybe people figure it out. Maybe it finally gets a European or US win, which is something it did not get. It came in second a lot. It won in Latin America, but it never got that big, like, northern Western Hemisphere win that we saw a lot of the other restricted Pokemon, like both Calis, Miraidon, and Zamazenta get. So maybe someone figures it out and it becomes a player, like, by February or March. I would love to see that, just because I think the Pokemon is really cool. So with that, June, I know you said that there were a couple other teams you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. It was of course the Screamtail team.
Yes.
it was of course that one. The other one, of course, I mean, there's an Iron Leaves. We can just talk,
I was going to say,
just
I can
want to
bring
point
this up
out.
as well.
Yeah, there's an Iron Leaves. It's banded. It's cool. It's funny. If you click Mega Horn Terrastellar, it's going to do a lot of damage.
This
Um,
was 13th place. This is like another attempt going with Iron Leaves, the grass type. We do see the low kick on the Iron Hands. Incineroar as the fire type, and then Torn as your Prankstermon on like this Miraidon team. And also this is an Overheat Terra Electric Miraidon, something that we saw Joe UX9 use a lot of in like the different tournaments he entered leading up to Worlds. I can't remember if that's the version he stuck with, but that is a version that we have seen in the past. Not a big fan of that version Miraidon. I think Leaves is really, really cool. Actually, one of the things I would like to see.
What Cork Drive boost does it get? Just like if you were playing 252, 252.
That
Is
that
it
was one of the
speed?
things I was going to do.
I think it depends on if you're Jolly or Adamant. Like you can get both of them.
So
But
it's
I think,
either. It's like has that flexibility.
yeah, I think it
So
should be speed.
if you're 252, 252 Jolly, yeah, actually, no, it always if you're 252, 252, you always get attack.
Really?
Yeah, so
Even
you
if you're
just bump the
Jolly.
attack down a little bit if you want it. But I do like one of my favorite things about Pokemon is when there's like weird multipliers like that, like Choice Band and Cork Drive both activating, and instead of just like being ×2, it's ×1.5 twice. One of my absolute, sorry for sidetracking, favorite things of all time is the AV Dynamax Cradilly I ran.
I hated that thing so much.
And it was so funny because you could get 3 times 1.5 boosts. Like you could max Rockfall and get the sand up. You could max Quake and get a defense boost. And then you would just have the Assault Vest boost. It was so funny. It was like literally one of my favorite things I did in Gen 8 because I thought the multipliers were so funny.
That's so gross.
And
Oh,
it was
I
real.
love that.
It was a real team that I used to qualify for the Players' Cup.
Yeah.
Despite my Colossal being 0, I was a physical Colossal because I closed team sheets,
Yeah.
but I was 0 attack, 0 attack Colossal because all my Colossals were 0 attack, and I never changed it. But I got to like 1650 and qualified using AV Cradilly 0 attack Colossal.
I remember you and I, it was like a Littleroot Lessons ladder tour, and I think you came in like first, or it was like you and Gil came in first and second, and I think I came in like third or fourth, and my only 2 losses were to you with that godforsaken Cradilly, and then I think I ended up matching Gil twice and lost him both times. Gil now pretty much plays Pokemon Pocket more than anyone I know, and it just like, he pops in and just reminds us that if he ever decided to pick this game up again, give him like a month and he would easily be one of the best players you could possibly go up against.
Yep.
But yeah, it's one of the things. So what I was looking at as well. So for you, assuming you're Jolly, you Jolly 252 would still need to Stellar Terra to use Psyblade to pick up Galarian Weezing. Assuming it's bold, like the calc I put in was bold 252 HP, 156 defense, which is pretty bulky. And I think Justin Knox has said that his was actually more special defense leaning than his.
Is that accounting for the fact that Psyblade gets the boost in electric terrain?
You don't get electric terrain because Weezing's up.
Yeah.
And then you're not faster than Cali Shadow then, so none of this
so you
matters.
get blown up.
It's just
Yes,
this must be
anyway.
for something else then.
Yeah. So and the thing is, if you don't Stellar Terra, you have to, even if you're Adamant, Choice Band, Psyblade into that Weezing is under 50% chance to Oko, so you have to commit your Terra to knock it out. So like I was about to say, like, did we just find our answer? No, we did not.
You'd have to be Ability Shield Miraidon, which my brain did think about.
You texted us that.
I've thought about Cloak Miraidon, And then I thought about ability shield, but I feel like he probably had to be specs, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
I think we should really talk about, maybe not both, it's up to you both, but
Yeah.
Lunala or Kyogre. I feel like those are the two players that we haven't seen either of the teams. I know there was really only one Lunala, but
Yeah,
No.
we'll do both of those and then call it. So this is Arcane VGC, who came in 10th place. They were the top placing Kyogre player. Going again, super leaning on this rain mode. Going with an Assault Vest Terragrass Kyogre, Tornadus, Bandit Urshifu, Life Orb Basculesian, Scarf Landorus Incarnate, and the Serena with the Wide Lens. I feel like Kyogre kind of to an extent stabilize its pieces towards the World's Run. Like I feel like it was Torn Ogre, Rapid Strike, Serena, Scarf Lando, and then the
it was
Mon
Overquill at Worlds.
Yeah, it was Overquill at Worlds and NAIC. But
and then it was whatchamacallit. There was also the Grim
the
Wo-Chien version.
Yep, which ended up showing up at NAIC and then doing nothing at Worlds.
I was gonna say it bombed Worlds, right?
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Sad Wo-Chien noises. I think like the big thing is like the change up on the items. The Kyogre on this set is AV. It could be an item like Specs, could be Mystic Water, could be Splash Plate. The Urshifu could be Banded. That could be your Scarfmon, but usually you want it to be like Sash or something on this set. So the items kind of changed around, but the 6 itself, or at least 5 of the 6, are relatively the same. It's a really good team. It's a really solid team. You have your speed control. You're going to be playing fast. You're going to be playing really offensive. But you do have these super disruptive Pokemon, mainly in like the Serena and the Banded Urshifu on this team. That Urshifu, especially once it's in Tailwind, punches holes probably into the entire meta. And the Serena is able to put out really important ice damage. Taunt is great for this team to stop Trick Room, especially Taunt on the grass type, so it can't be Rage Powdered away. And Queenly Majesty works the same exact way as Farigiraf works. So yeah, I think that this is, at least this mold is the mold you should expect to see Kyogre played in.
I think this is a pretty sick Cali Shadow matchup, right?
With the Swift Swim Basculesian, yeah.
I just even with AV Kyogre. Like, obviously, yes, you're relying on Origin Pulse. Origin Pulse misses, but like that Cali Shadow isn't doing anything to you. Obviously, there are other Pokemon on the team. They're going to have a Rillaboom, and maybe that forces you to Terra, and it makes things uncomfortable. But like, I feel like this is a pretty decent matchup into a Cali Shadow.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm just saying the no Pokemon knocked out Last Respects just knocks it out. The Cali Shadow.
That's so funny.
That's very funny. Actually.
I mean, it's something that you would kind of expect, but the fact that it happens, that's pretty nice. Now, of course, if it terrestrializes, it only does like a third. So,
well, then you just wave crash it. I feel like what's wave crash?
Wave crash always.
But then in the rain, it's 180. It probably does it with. It probably just does it.
So in the rain, so I'm using Audie's a set that Audie ran 108 HP, 84 defense on the Calyrex Shadow. Wave Crash, if 252 Adamant, Life Orb, Wave Crash always KOs in the rain. So you're probably just clicking Wave Crash regardless. I just wanted to see the funny Last Respects calc.
That is fair.
Yeah, I think this team is cool. Yeah, like triple taunt is funny. You know, that's like my favorite part. And like the Serena, actually the Serena I do like a lot because like you were saying, Angela, it's a Pokemon that doesn't care about Instant or Amoonguss when it's trying to taunt. You can't fake it out. You can't redirect it with Rage Powder. It's always going to get that off. And it's like the one Pokemon that can use Terra Ice defensively against Cali Ice. Like, I'd be curious how many times the Serena clicked Terra Ice in front of Cali Ice Rider. Just because, like, you can. I just hate how rain teams look, I think. Like, what do you mean you have 4 electric weaknesses? What do you mean half your team's weak to ice and the other half are all Terra Grass? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
it just like it just doesn't click here, you
I
know?
think there are versions of this team that go lesson on the rain. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really want to be playing the Wo-Chien version, but something maybe more adjacent to
Yeah.
like a screens, or just like, do you really need all 3 of Lando, Basculegion, and Urshifu to be abusing the rain? Maybe not. I don't know, maybe you do, but I think there's probably a version of this team that is maybe a little bit more, we'll call it ice responsible.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I get it. It's strong. There's a reason that like rain is always good in every format, especially whenever Urshifu is legal. But it it just feels bad. It looks bad. Like you can't switch anything defensively. You're just relying on your Pokemon hitting harder than your opponents and
yeah,
like doing
I
it
think
differently.
it's like I have more multipliers, I have better stat sticks.
Yeah.
It is very much like an offensive beatdown team. Like there really aren't many defensive switches on this team. So like you probably really, in the grand scheme of things, aren't switching that much to reposition because like if one of your Pokemon's going to go down to a super effective move, good chance that move's super effective into whatever's in the back as well.
Yeah.
So like the idea is just blow it up. Um, I don't know. I think that maybe there's some iteration that happens with Rain,
I mean, what did
but
Stefan play? Stefan played like what?
no, Stefan
Kyogre,
didn't play.
Torn, Serena. Didn't he? I feel like
No,
there
that's
was a moment.
Chase.
No, I feel like I'm probably just like remembering some random
Stefan
local that
played
you guys
Rain
put.
back in Sword and Shield.
No, I just thought there was like a New England local that I watched that had like Stefan playing like Serena, Kyogre, but maybe I made that up.
I don't recall. Do you recall Stefan playing Kyogre?
Uh,
I don't.
I wouldn't put it past him. Like that
I mean, I
feels
wouldn't
right,
either.
you know?
I know,
But
like Chase and Ronald solely played Rain
yeah.
for the entirety of Regulation G, and those are like our 2 main Rain players.
But regardless, I
Yeah,
have watched a Twitch broadcast of a New England local that had a more balancy, I would say, version of this team.
Yeah, and it's really just as simple as like you take all of this and you just like make the Basculegion like a Chen Pao or a Raging Bolt. It's like Sash is open, like just to have like a Raging Bolt if you need something defensively, a Chen Pao if you want something offensively.
I
Um,
think Chase had Chien Pao at one point. Um, yeah, I think it was because I remember playing against him in locals, and I was like, that's annoying.
yeah,
But
the Chen
yeah,
Pao
like
is
that, like
obnoxious.
yeah. So that in itself, that just adds another, like really, it just adds another Pokemon that Miraidon doesn't like seeing, because
Yeah,
once you clear the Landorus, Miraidon kind of just runs through the entire team, and as we've already discussed, these Terra Grasses mean absolutely nothing in front of Fire Pond. Because she's just going to click Terra, like she's just going to Ivy Cudgel you regardless, because there's just so much damage that the little rain mitigation doesn't even matter. Um, so like that's the really tough thing with this team. It's that it is compounding your weaknesses. Like in a baseball like team building sense, kind of fitting because the Phillies just got a really cool picture today. It's like, yeah, the corner outfield spots really suck. But what if we just went and got even more of a thing that we already are really good in? Like this rain team is, yeah, we have a ton of weaknesses, but what if we literally were the best team that just died to Raging Bolt?
yeah, and it
And
works.
that's what it is. And shout out to Arcane for top 16 in the event. Final team is this Lunala team, and honestly, I kind of love this team.
This is the only good team. Well, again,
This is the old this team is just. Oh, I love this.
that's what I'm saying.
You
Except
turn
for Chad Gaming 16's Screamtail,
The
except
comic
except for
star,
that.
I'm your biggest fan.
That's what I'm saying. This team's awesome.
No, the problem is the Lunala set is bad.
Yes, it is, but that's besides the point.
You can't play. I don't. Clearly, this person is much better than I am because I would click Meteor Beam once and then I would get walled by some normal type in the back. Like I am I've tested it and I know it's bad, but I just really want to play like Covert Cloak, Calm Mind, or like Lefty's Calm Mind Lunala. It's like it calls to me. It's like, no, Shadow Shield is so good, and I get Moonblast on like uncool draining kiss that Kali Shadow gets, and I can Moongeist Beam, and it's like I'll be okay, and then I'm never okay. It never works. But in all seriousness, I do not understand how you play that set, and you don't just like get walled out by random things and lose really important end games.
That's because you got the bear.
Yeah,
That's the only thing you need.
You have 2 bears on this team. It's like we're
Two
going to
bears.
Provincetown in July. It's amazing.
Folks.
But you get 2 bears.
That joke was for like about 12 of you who watch this, which actually isn't my most obscure reference I've made in the pod in the last month. But yeah, no, I like any team with Ursaluna. Both Ursalunas are just absolutely just. Our group just loves Ursaluna. I love Taunt Waterfoo. It's not Goggles, so it's not the correct one. But you know, your furry needs some goggles. I do find Imprison Farrig as a way to stop Trick Room against harder Trick Room teams to be interesting. With that being said, I would have used a different move than Twin Beam. I would go with something like Psychic or Psychic Noise to further lock out your opponent's options. Because the only thing you're locking out, like with the only thing Imprison is locking out with Twin Beam is just other Farigiraf. So, like, I will say, if you are going to go play Imprison, also use moves that other Pokemon use just to get your mileage out of it.
Imprison Protect, like Imprison Protect Trick Room. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. Or like just putting Psychic on there. We just saw the top 2 Cali teams were using Psychic. Like Imprison Psychic means that they can't touch your Farigiraf. And if you have the Ursaluna right next to it, they can't touch either of your Pokemon. So that in itself is really cool. Other things to note with this team, another team with only 2 protects that leads Trick Room, like the Amoonguss, I mean, let's call it what it is. The Clear Smog could easily be protect. The U-turn on the Ogerpon could also be protect as well.
I think the thing is like because your Ghost Setter is a Trick Room, is a Ghost type, and your Trick Room Setter is a Ghost type, and it has the busted ability. Like, your Ogerpon and your Amoonguss aren't really at risk to being faked out. And then it's like, if they're not faking out, then they're absorbing a hit. And if they're absorbing a hit, like, almost nothing is KOing Lunala in one shot.
I can understand that.
That's maybe the theory behind it. And then once you're in Trick Room, you're just using those turns.
Yeah, we're also and you're also right. We are in an Urshifu meta where protecting doesn't exist. So
and you've got a whole giraffe there.
Yeah,
like
okay.
I love that Fire Upon U-turn is exclusively to lead it. Bluff, follow me, and then you turn out, right? That's 100% it.
That's exactly.
I'm gonna get my Ursaluna in and get the Flame Orb activated because I'm greedy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what that's for. Like, legitimately, I actually might. So the other team, a team that we didn't see in this tournament, was like a Raging Bolt, a CSR balance team that Keon ran. That looked cool, but like I actually might work on this as a fun little project. I don't know. I just like these Pokemon. It's aesthetically pleasing. Like, it's a fun team to just like. It's just a ton of like good little guys. It's the absolute opposite of the of the Kyogre team. Like this team, you have your fire, water, grass, you have your speed control, you have your redirection, you have damage all over the place, but you still have your really cool support mons. Your Lunala is damage and support. Like, yeah, let's just say it gets walled out, but it can turn into a wide guard bot and let your Ursaluna or your Urshifu or your Ogerpon just take a ton of KOs. Like, that's great. Like, that's super cool. That's fun. Like, I don't know. This team seems really, really fun. Comic Star, I'm your biggest fan right now. A plus, turn that Twin Beam into Psychic, and then you're set.
No, this is beautiful. I like, because everybody was always trying to figure out how do you use Lunala without just like losing to everything. And it's like, oh, I just put 2 normal types next to it for CSR. And then, Chris, you were saying, well, what if you click Meteor Beam and you're just walled by normal types? Got a whole Urshifu. You got the other bear to close combat those guys.
Yeah.
Like, everything on this team just hits so hard. It's awesome. And of course the U-turn, like, me, that Ogerpon's an Incineroar and I'm clicking Parting Shot instead, but it's the same idea,
Yeah, I mean, like, I can definitely see. I will say this: the one thing that the Incineroar probably does, because Incineroar does make a lot of sense on this team, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you still have the Lunala, the Ursaluna, and the Urshifu, but there definitely could be games where you just don't, like, if you have to bring like Farig, a Moong, let's say that's an Incin, and then Lunala, all of your damage is coming from that Lunala, and that's putting a lot, like, you probably need damage from another Pokemon. So having the Ogerpon be a follow me mon that can also just, like, click Ivy Cudgel, that's pretty big. Because it could, and even just like having your pivot Pokemon have a lot of offense to actually get a lot out of clicking that. It probably does a good bit of damage, especially like if you're going, like, that's a move you can click into a Farigiraf, and I mean, we'll just see. It's not as good as, of course, clicking Ivy Cudgel, but you could still do a good bit of damage with it.
Oh yeah, and the speed tier for Ogerpon is really, really important too, especially with all the Sash Urshifus running around. Like, you just need something faster than that. Having another Pokemon that's not weak to water is really good. And potentially 5 Spore immunities on this team.
Mm-hmm.
You love to see that.
In this format, even though that there is the electric terrain, like, people are still going to bring a Moongus, and in formats where people are going to bring a Moongus this much, you gotta respect getting spored, because if you don't have that answer, you could just get spored out of games.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, this team, in the grand scheme of things, does want to play in Trick Room, and if you do want to play in Trick Room, you can't lose to a Moongus.
Oh, yeah.
So those are the teams, everyone. Fun tournament to go over. I think that while it wasn't the sexiest results, it wasn't like, oh, this is meta breaking or groundbreaking. There were some fun teams. There was a lot of potential in this format. And as we lead up to San Antonio, which is our first U.S. I know San Antonio is the first U.S. event. Does Europe get an event before us?
I know Birmingham exists. Could not tell you what date it is.
Oh,
I want to say it's January.
I have the schedule. So San Antonio was January 24th. Yes, so the week before, Birmingham is the week before. That's January 18th. And then that same exact weekend is Rio de Janeiro. So we're going to get our first 2 Reg G events in less than a month, in like a little under a month. So as we lead up to that, maybe we'll start to see some metagame changes develop. And once we get to those events, we will definitely start seeing whether or not we are playing the same exact regulation as we were at the beginning of the year, or if it actually, got a little more interesting.
It's gonna be the same.
It's probably
Like,
going to be the same. I think there might be
yeah,
some like little changes, but in general, it's going to be the same.
yeah.
So
It'll
yes,
probably be a cycle. I feel like we said, it was like, oh, Terrapagos was really good, and then Zama got really good, and then when Zama got really good, Cali Shadow started doing better, so on and so forth. Like I think the teams are probably tight enough to keep it from being like as much matchup roulette as it had been, but I think it will probably still be a little matchup roulette cycling.
yeah. Well, we'll get there, and hopefully, we'll get through this dark time and play a very fun GS Cup starting in May. So with that, June, you go first. Tell the listeners where you can find you and any other like shout outs.
Oh, I guess, yeah, hit me up. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm really trying to grow the Blue Sky page. Yeah, I think that's just like more fun to do.
Significantly more. There's no Nazis. Or
That's
at
what I'm
least,
saying, man.
well, I mean, there are, but we can just block them and ridicule them.
Exactly. The Blue Sky's where the real gamers are. I'm at Linty with 2 Ys over there. Um, Other than that, I'm in Boston. Come say hi. Come to locals. Support your local scenes. That's what I'll say. I love locals. They're so much fun. I went to a doubleheader for cups yesterday. I got a cool 7 points total and had a blast because we got hibachi in between the 2 cups, and it's awesome.
Okay, Chris, where can the people find you?
Yeah, I am solely on Blue Sky, on which I do not know my handle.
I got you.
If you want to say hi, do it in the Littleroot Discord. If you're in southeastern PA, maybe I'll see you at a local. I'm hoping to play in more locals in the new year, until I have a baby in the middle of the year, at which point there will be no more locals. There will just be having a baby.
It's at CJL78.
Wow.
Yeah, I know I can type in your name on Blue Sky and sometimes I can read. Why are you defending Kenny Pickett?
Because someone has to. Someone has to defend
Someone-
Pit
Yeah,
Great,
he has a mother. She can do it.
Pit Great Kenny Pickett, who was not at fault for today's loss. He did his best.
Yes.
He's really great. And I would say he had 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley had 1, which means that Pitt contributed to the Eagles' positives today more than Penn State did, legally speaking.
I'm going to smack the absolute.
It's just math. I don't know what to tell you.
Bro, this is I love my favorite Pennsylvania sports podcast, Littleroot Lessons. It's so good.
When are we getting St. Louis Cardinals talk from June? That's the real
We're-
question.
The St. Louis Cardinals
Can we
talk
get
is
can we get
going to-
Lars Newbar talk?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's the only bright point. I mean, Goldsmith's gone. We're shopping Arenado. It's not good. The future's bright though. Jordan Walker, Victor Scott II, Mason Wynn, Tink Hence once he gets to the big leagues, it's over.
You just made up that's just a British peasant.
No, Tink
That's
Hence
a
is real.
Victorian child.
No, he's like, he might not. I think he's 19 still, but he's good. He was in Double A.
The Phillies had a good 19-year-old I was excited about, but we just traded him for a real major league pitcher, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And you can hear my thoughts on the Jesus Luzardo trade at Blue Sky, at Rose Tinted Cheeks, and if you also really like our content, you can also follow us and find all of it at Blue Sky, at Littleroot Lessons. You can watch it on our YouTube page. We're on all podcatchers, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that has podcasts. We do our weekly episodes on Mondays. We just had an amazing Littleroot record interview with 2-time top cutter in Regulation H, Anthony Lonergan. Carter, of course, is banging out the Genlock series. The 3rd part, Pokemon Emerald, came out earlier in the month. So if you haven't watched that series, please do. And as always, thank you and have a great week, everyone. And Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah as well.